Sleep paralysis stories typically involve unusual and often extremely frightening or disturbing experiences. Perhaps you have one or two of these tales. If not, I'll first share one of mine to give you an understanding of what it can be like. After that, we'll take a closer look at whether sleep paralysis demons really exist, or if science can provide a logical and comforting explanation. Imagine the following scenario. You've fallen asleep as usual after a long day. You hope you'll have pleasant dreams and wake up the next morning feeling refreshed. But instead of waking up peacefully in the morning, you awaken at an unknown time in the middle of the night. Two things immediately spring to mind. You can't move at all, and you're not alone. You feel a weight on your chest, pressing you down and preventing you from standing. But it's worse than that. You can't move your arms or legs. You can't even move your lips to call out for help. You're not sure who or what is pushing on your chest. It's too dark to see, but you just know there's a presence there. Something strange, something uninvited, something frightening. This happened to me last year and was a very unsettling experience. It happened after I'd been up all night doing an essay. When I finished, I immediately fell asleep. The next thing I knew, I thought I had completely woken up, except there was a shadow, demon, looming over the end of my bed. It didn't have a face, but I could feel it staring at me, and it felt like pure evil. I tried with my whole body to scream, but nothing came out, which only made me panic more. I felt like the demon was about to attack me. Then his head twitched to the side, and he pounced on my chest, sort of thrashing at me. I felt like it was suffocating me. I tried to close my eyes again, and put all my energy into trying to wake up and move my body. But I couldn't. The demon was over my head, watching me with his evil eyes, suffocating me. When I was finally fully awake, I lay in bed for about half an hour, shaking and next to tears. It was probably the scariest thing I've ever experienced. I thought I was about to die, and no one would even know what killed me. That was my sleep paralysis and my horrific experience. Stories like this one are in fact surprisingly common. A study in 2011 found that 7.6% of people will experience sleep paralysis in their lifetime. And the figure is even higher among people who have narcolepsy, around 40%. You may well have experienced this phenomenon yourself and didn't even know what it was. But let's find out what causes it and what can be done to prevent it. Accepting the cause is something which I now know many viewers struggle with. Although sleep paralysis has a solid scientific explanation, as you'll see in a minute, the feeling can be so real that you may find it difficult to accept the scientific explanation. Cultural, religious, esoteric, and personal beliefs all play a key role in how you end up viewing sleep paralysis, and the things you may experience with it in the future. So in a moment we'll take a look at the scientific explanation and also consider some of the alternative viewpoints. What causes sleep paralysis? The scientific explanation. The causes of the physical aspect of sleep paralysis are slightly different depending on the stage of sleep in which you experience it. The first one is when falling asleep. Some people experience sleep paralysis at the start of the night. While falling asleep, the body naturally relaxes and you would normally lose consciousness. However, if you remain aware that you're falling asleep, your mind can remain alert while the body shuts down. The second one is when waking up. Alternatively, it can happen after you've already been asleep, and it seems that this is the most common experience. During the night, you cycle through several different stages of sleep. During what's called the rapid eye movement, you tend to dream more vividly. And so, the brain switches off your muscles to prevent you from acting out your dreams, which could of course be dangerous. When you wake up consciously, but take a little longer to regain physical control of your body, it can result in you recognizing that you're paralyzed. So you could look at sleep paralysis as your body and brain being a little out of sync. Why do you see and feel strange things during sleep paralysis? How does science explain 3 of the main sleep paralysis stories that people report? First one being that there's an intruder or other presence in the room. Second one being that there's some kind of sleep paralysis demon pushing down on your chest, strangling, or doing other unpleasant things to you. And the final story people report is having an out-of-body experience. During the rapid eye movement and the muscle paralysis that comes with it, your breathing is affected. It becomes shallower, and when you try to breathe deeply, you may feel that you can't. Your brain might then misinterpret this as a feeling of being strangled or a presence pushing down on your chest. When you're in a vulnerable and threatened state, the body naturally reacts with its fight or flight defense mechanism. For example, when you suddenly feel that someone wants to attack you and you get that surge of adrenaline, that makes your heart beat much faster. So if you wake up and are unable to move and are in a hypervigilant state where everything you sense seems much more than it is, you may react to the sensation of paralysis and breathing difficulty by thinking that something bad is happening or about to happen to you. In addition to the above 2 processes, several brain structures might interact to create a hypnagogic hallucination. For example, the common sleep paralysis stories of an intruder or demonic entity. The hallucination may not initially take on any particular form. But when the threat system comes into play, you might misinterpret the feeling that you're not alone as being that the additional presence is something bad, thus creating a hallucination, which is demonic or malevolent in some way. The out-of-body experience isn't explained by the activation of the threat system. It's explained by the parts of the brain involved in coordinating movement and also working out where the body physically is in space. Researchers generally agree that an out-of-body experience is another form of hallucination caused by a neurological mechanism. In addition to the above, there's also the confusion which can occur as your dreams or nightmares overlap with reality. If you wake up from a dream but remain paralyzed, sometimes your dream imagery can appear to map onto the real world. So you may have your eyes open but still see, hear, or feel some of the weird or frightening things which you were just dreaming about, even if you aren't aware that you were just dreaming. So for example, you could be dreaming about some strange creature, then wake up paralyzed and continue to feel that the same creature is close to you, though it's now in your bedroom instead of the dream you were just experiencing. Then you add the physiological elements that come with finding yourself paralyzed, and you have all the ingredients for being very scared. Now, let's go to the not-so-scientific explanation. If you don't believe that the scientific explanation is sufficient, then what else remains? Let's look at each of the 3 main types of sleep paralysis stories. The intruder. If you wake up in the middle of the night and you have a sudden feeling that there's a human intruder in the room, then the possible explanation is simple. There really is someone else in the room. In all seriousness, this does actually happen to some unfortunate people, but very rarely. And it's unlikely a common burglar would have been able to paralyze and choke you whilst helping himself to your jewelry. So if you wake up paralyzed and struggling to breathe and then notice a presence on the other side of the room, it's probably safe to assume there's no intruder, unless you're incredibly unlucky and experiencing both an episode of sleep paralysis and a burglary at exactly the same time. That does seem particularly unlikely, but of course, not impossible. The demon. Interestingly though, around the world, there are many cultural interpretations of the forces at work in this particular kind of sleep paralysis event. For example, in Fiji, the demon is often seen as a deceased relative coming back for some unfinished business, or to tell the person something important. In Chinese folklore, it's also seen as a ghost rather than a demon or intruder. Some countries such as Iran and Pakistan interpret it as being demons or spirits who have taken over a person's body, often due to black magic performed by an enemy. In Turkish culture, the entity is literally seen as sitting on your chest and stealing away your breath. Most countries and cultures appear to have their own explanations for the sleep paralysis demon. Some very similar, and others quite different. The common theme being, though, that the entity is up to no good and something to be feared. I know that some people do fully believe that demons or other evil entities exist. A few people talk about them in a religious framework, others just in terms that there are some weird and bad things out there which science can't explain. Among all of the stories from people who do believe these things, there's one common theme. Nothing bad actually happened to them. This then raises another question. If there are evil beings, why is it that they simply pester you in the night and don't do anything beyond scaring you? The only explanation is that maybe they don't have that power. The only thing they can do from their dimension is to connect to us during the sleep paralysis and just frighten us without having the power to actually hurt us. The out-of-body experience. There seems to be some overlap between the concepts of an out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences, lucid dreaming, and astral projection. Many people report having experienced one or more of these, and the bookstores abound with writers who claim to have techniques to consciously leave the body and have an amazing adventure in the astral realm. There's no dispute that people do experience the sensation of an out-of-body experience during sleep paralysis. The point is whether it's best explained in biological terms, or whether there really are other realms which a part of you is capable of accessing. There are many sources claiming that sleep paralysis has a biological cause, but can then be used as a springboard to try to attempt astral projection. I recently came across what's actually quite a sensible book explaining how to do this. It's called Sleep Paralysis, A Guide to Hypnagogic Visions and Visitors of the Night. It provides a detailed background to sleep paralysis, but also aims to help you find a way to convert sleep paralysis into a lucid dream. The point being that you can then take control of the experience and turn it into something positive. And if you think that's a ridiculous and impossible idea, especially if your personal experience has been terrifying, you'll find several detailed stories from readers who report trying to do exactly that. They have some inspiring stories of viewing sleep paralysis as a positive thing, which they enjoy because of the unique and fascinating experiences it brings them. This may be a great cure for the sleep paralysis, which turns it into a great astral adventure. How to stop sleep paralysis? What medical treatment is available? Fortunately, sleep paralysis is something which most people experience just a few times, and so no treatment is required. However, if it persists, and you find it highly disturbing and disruptive to your sleep and daily life, then you may find speaking to a doctor about it. These are the main options they typically consider. They may refer you to a sleep specialist to rule out the possibility of narcolepsy. They may prescribe an antidepressant medication for a short period, such as clomipramine, which is known to alter your rapid eye movement sleep, and therefore help with reducing the paralysis and hallucinations. They might consider whether there's an underlying mental illness if you're experiencing hallucinations outside of the sleeping environment. They would explain the biological processes involved in sleep paralysis, as outlined above, in the hope that educating you about sleep will help you accept it as a normal occurrence. They might talk to you about having healthy sleep habits, which is known to help reduce many sleep problems. Feel free to tell us in the comments about your experiences, and if you have any tips or techniques for dealing with it. You may help a lot of people. Thank you for watching. Join our spiritual community in Facebook. Please like and subscribe to our channel.